I just watched Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey in IMAX,
like Nolan intended.
and I definitely understand why he makes the movies the way he does. First thing that I want to talk about is the feeling that I got when I actually walked into the IMAX theater. And I have to say, before this film, it's been a long time since I've actually seen a movie in IMAX, and I was genuinely baffled at how large the screen is. It's slightly curved in our theater and it's massive. So the size of the IMAX screen is just incomparable to anything I've seen before. Like when you go to the movies and you see the actual screen, you're like, wow, that's a big screen. When you go to the IMAX movie theater, you are genuinely blown away by how big the screen is. Like I kept turning to my brother and saying, dude, this screen is bigger than our house. Because and keep in mind, we live in a 2-story house with the roof, and this screen is still taller, quite a ways than our house. So just seeing something of that scale just gets the feeling inside you that you're like, oh, this is gonna be epic. This is gonna be a phenomenal experience because you can't repeat or even come close to anything similar to that feeling, but actually being there in IMAX. Because sure, you can have a large TV at home and you can, set up some backlights and you can create a real mood. And yes, you can enjoy movies at home. I definitely don't argue that, but you can never replicate the feeling of watching something on such a large display. The feeling is just undescribable, and I thought that I wouldn't be so blown away because I've seen IMAX movies before. I've been in IMAX theaters. I just forgot just the pure size and scale of it.
Like Nolan intended.
And the second thing was the sound was impeccable. The sound was genuinely mind-blowing because you feel it in your bones. You feel every bass tremor so much more than anything else you can see in the movies, especially when you consider the fact that Christopher Nolan actually did the entire or wanted the entire score for the film made with as close to the original instruments of that time as possible. It just brings you into the film so much, and the entire audio experience is incredible. So just I'm still kind of in awe of the experience being in IMAX was. The scale, the size, and the production value of seeing something in IMAX on such a large screen with sounds of such high quality is just incredible.
Like Nolan intended.
Especially in some of the wider shots of just scenery, and that's something that I liked. My dad personally does not like that too much when there are longer shots of just scenery and the environment that the characters are in, but I think personally, especially for this film, it works really well because it pulls you into the story completely. You genuinely feel like you're out there at sea in the storm with the crew of the Odyssey on the ship. It feels so uneasy and so unnerving, and you can genuinely feel how horrible that would be. And you can also feel how much of a spectacle it is when you see an open sea and the island in the background, especially from those shots from like New Zealand when there is like the dead rising from the ground. Some of those things are so phenomenally well done and look so good when on an IMAX screen.
Like Nolan intended.
But I would definitely put The Odyssey in one of those films that you have to see in IMAX to completely get the vibe that Nolan wanted you to get. Because sure, you can put that in home on your TV, but you're never gonna replicate that experience. So if you didn't, definitely go check it out in IMAX.
Like Nolan intended.
That's one of the things that I think Nolan completely mastered. He doesn't make the movies that can be seen in IMAX. He makes movies that remind you why IMAX as a media form exists in the first place, because films are on such scale, they're such large historical or just epics that have to be seen on that medium, because you don't feel the scale and the weight of it unless you see it in this beautiful environment with such a large screen and such amazing sound.
Like Nolan intended.
It's something that actually pulls you in completely, and he has mastered how to achieve that and how to achieve that spectacle level of a movie that's designed especially for IMAX, that when you go out, you say to yourself, holy shit, I should see more films in IMAX, because that's why it exists, because it can conjure up a feeling in you that nothing else really can match. And one of the ways he achieves that is by shooting as much of it as he can practically, and using as little amount of CGI as he can when he can shoot something practically and when he can shoot something on set. And he creates extremely large sets so he can film physically on location. He goes to large extents to film everything on actual location instead of filming, in front of blue screens and green screens, because it genuinely makes you wonder and stay in awe when you see actual landscapes. I'm not sure if there is a way that you can explain that, but you feel when something is actually physically there, when it's something that's made by nature and actually exists in our world, and it's not just a computer generated graphic. I'm not saying computer generated worlds look disgusting. I mean, look at Avatar. It looks beautiful, but there is just some tactility that you feel when you know everything is shot on location, and you don't even have to know it, but you can feel it in subconsciousness that you're like, okay, yeah, that just feels real. And one of the things that happens when you film on locations is one of the things that happen in the movie. There is a shot where there is Odysseus on the ship and they're sailing, and then orcas pop up and start jumping from the water and then back in the water. Not orcas, or maybe dolphins, I'm not sure. But that's not CGI. That wasn't planned. Those orcas or dolphins were not supposed to be there, but that's something that happened because they were shooting practically in a real fucking boat on a real fucking location. Yes, was it a hassle to actually create a boat that you can actually sail, that then getting the IMAX camera on it, protecting it from the splashes, and finding the perfect weather and tides and everything to get that shot? Yes, it's a large hassle, but holy fuck, is it worth it when something like that happens and you catch that on your film? That's something that's irreplaceable by computers or CGI or AI prompts. I mean, you can say and the AI will generate it, or you can animate that, but actually having that happen, I don't think you can match that feeling, especially when just filming on raw locations, and then you have to work around those locations that feel so much more tactile and so much more real. And of course, by that, actors give a lot better performances because they actually have to interact with the environment and they see the scale and the epicness and the beauty of the environment that they're in. I also want to touch up on experiencing the film and watching the film, because you can watch the film on your TV, on your phone, on your laptop, on your tablet, or on your even smart fridges nowadays, and you can watch the film. But experiencing the film is one completely different thing, because when you walk into the movie theater, you are dedicating 2 hours, 3 hours, 1.5 hours of your life on actually watching the film. You go there, you see the biggest screen you've ever seen in your life, especially if it's like IMAX. You experience sound you cannot replicate anywhere at home unless you're like a multi-millionaire, but you get to experience the film fully because you're fully immersed. You are there, you have decided to dedicate your time to fully immerse yourself into that film.
Like Nolan intended.
While when you are home, you still have that, I'm home, but I'm watching the film. You can get a notification, you can go scroll, you can, get distracted, let's say, fairly easily by other people, or just you have a feeling like you're at home. But when you go to the theater, it's an event. You go to see the movie and you are then paying 100% of your attention to the movie. And that's why I feel like experiencing the film is so different from just watching the film. And experiencing a spectacle like the Odyssey in IMAX format,
like Nolan intended,
is definitely one step above experiencing a film as just regular film. Another thing that I think Nolan completely nailed with this film and what immerses you and makes it such a spectacle is the production design, are the large scale sets, and is the lighting. The lighting is fairly natural. A lot of the movie is shot like in the exteriors where you can't really control the light to the fullest because you are dependent on the sun, and I feel like that makes it more realistic and more immersive. And then when you actually see the scenes that are shot in the interiors, they feel like they're lit by, actual candles and fires, and it makes you feel like you're genuinely there at that time instead of making it look super stylized. I know he could have gone the other way and make it look super stylized, but I think this was the right choice, especially with the combination of practical effects and such large sets and production design. I feel like it just makes it a lot more realistic and immerses you completely, especially with the scenes where the Odysseus is walking through Troy, which is like burning and houses are falling apart and there's just chaos and carnage everywhere. I feel like it really pulls you in and makes you feel what he felt, and I think it really works particularly well for this film. And I'm going to touch up again on the cinematography briefly because that's something I really enjoyed. I don't think the scenes were too long. As I've said, there are people who watch the film who said to me that they thought, my dad being one of them, that they thought the scenes were too long. The shots of, just nature and sea and locations were too long. But I personally like that. I think it pulls you into the film a lot more than, just brief shots. And I think it makes the film more grounded and more realistic. And I am definitely all for showing us the locations longer, especially when you're filming on real locations. I feel like we're used to cutting so fast to kind of hide the fact that we are not on real locations, that they're just in studio or in some plastic surrounding jungle or something like that. But when you're actually there on set, I appreciate seeing more of the real world that he shot on IMAX.
Like Nolan intended.
Because it's beautiful and it makes you actually relate to the characters and to the story a lot more, because you can kind of feel that it's real, that it's there. Do I think I could have had the same experience if I watched the Odyssey in regular movie theater or at home? No. As you could have probably guessed by my rants this entire video, I don't think you can experience the Odyssey just the way that you can experience it when watching it in IMAX.
Like Nolan intended.
I think that you can still appreciate the movie. I think you will still enjoy the movie if you see it in just regular movie theater. I think you can still enjoy it because it's still, after all, just beautiful spectacle. That is just one thing, that it's just gorgeous throughout and has phenomenal performances, phenomenal locations, phenomenal cinematography, phenomenal editing, just genuinely masterclass of filmmaking. But I think that if you want a full experience, you should watch it in IMAX.
Like Nolan intended.
And I also think it's not one of those movies that you're gonna put on a regular Sunday when you're bored. It's not one of those films. It's genuinely a spectacle that you should witness in a movie theater, because if you're looking at it at home, you're not gonna experience it. You're gonna watch it. I think this film, alongside a couple of box office hits we've been seeing in the past couple of months, is just to prove that movie theaters are not dead. Cinema is not dead. It's just we crave good movies that are actually made for movie theaters, for us to experience them there. Because when Amazon or Netflix makes a film, they're making it to be optimized for streaming. They're not optimizing it for experiencing the film in movie theaters or in IMAX. They're optimizing it so you can see it on almost any device, and it's gonna look okay on almost every device, but you're gonna watch it, not experience it. And that's why I think Nolan specifically stands for, and I'm super thankful for that, because that's something that we as filmmakers should fight for. And that's because we still enjoy this form of artwork that is movies, and going to the cinema and actually experiencing the film to the fullest, because I don't think anything can or will be able to replace that anytime soon. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have some thoughts on the Odyssey, if you've seen it, let me know down in the comments. I love to talk about films, so let's talk, and I will see you in the next one.